Hi, this is Josh Godhoff, and welcome to Fight Bad Medicine, why conventional medicine falls short and functional medicine is the future. In this episode, we're going to explain why that is that conventional medicine falls short and is not the best system of healthcare. So, there are a couple of reasons why that is. So, number one, sometimes the doctors, they just don't care, and they're not there because they want to be, and they're not present in the moment. And we're going to illustrate that with a story soon. Another reason is the opposite spectrum, is that doctors just make it way too complicated. They make medicine way too complicated when they could simplify it by getting to the root cause of the issue, which is what functional medicine does. So when we talk about not caring, it's just that it's just you're another patient. It's not a complicated thing. It's not an issue for them. And here's a story when I was 16 years old, and I went to the doctor and my primary care, and I say, "Look, doc, I'm getting sick like 6 or 7 times a year, and not just like a runny nose, but pretty bad. Like I get a fever, a sore throat, like the whole 9 yards." And I say, "Look, I want to figure out why that is that I'm getting sick." So what does he say to me? He says, "You're supposed to get sick." And I couldn't believe my ears. I'm like, I'm no expert. I'm thinking to myself, I'm no expert, but I'm not supposed to get sick. And I tell him, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. You know, I'm not in the medical field. I never took even one biology course, but I have the common sense to know that I'm not supposed to get sick all the time. And I see the people, my friends around me, the same age, not getting sick all the time. So it just really frustrated me, and that kind of led me to this path of functional medicine. I didn't realize it was called functional medicine at the time, and but I knew there was something more. I knew there was some sort of better medicine out there. And actually, so one good thing is that he actually referred me to ENT, and this guy was like one of those old timers, old school medicine. In a way, you could call him a functional medicine practitioner, because that was the type of advice he gave me. Instead of getting so complicated, he looked at my throat and he said, "You have cryptic tonsils." I'm like, "What is that?" He's like, "Your tonsils just have like little tiny holes in them. Food grabs onto them. All you need to do is you need to drink more. You need to stay hydrated, and you need to gargle with salt water every night." So I'm like, "Is that simple? Like that's why I get sick?" He's like, "Listen, give it a try, see what happens." From that time on, I would say maybe I got sick once, maybe twice a year, but not with those ridiculous symptoms with high fever and long-standing colds, 2-3 weeks. It wasn't happening. Like as soon as I would get a sore throat, I would make sure to drink a lot. I would make sure to gargle with salt water. Very simple. I mean, since then, I've learned other things that are great for immunity and for knocking out colds before they happen, like zinc lozenges, high-dose vitamin C, and whatnot. There's a lot of other things out there, like elderberry. But the point is that he didn't make it so complicated. He just simplified it. It was that simple, and he was willing to address the issue. It's not that he had to put a lot of effort into it. He just had to care. That's really it. And then you have the opposite side of the spectrum, and you usually see this in hospital medicine. So this is where doctors make it too complicated. So I'm actually working with a conventional medicine doctor right now. Hope to eventually get in, full-time functional medicine. I have practice now a couple times a week. I see patients, but for now, I work with conventional medicine. He lets me, recommend some natural things, but I see a lot of things that go wrong. So we're doing rounds, and there's this patient that has fibroids, and the reason she's still in the hospital so long after the surgery is because they actually nicked one of her ureters, and she went into kidney failure, acute renal failure. And bad news. And then to make a bad story worse, pour salt on the wound, because she couldn't, because of the surgical wound, because of the renal failure and all that stuff. She was very exhausted, just sleeping in bed all the time. She developed a blood clot in her leg. Simple thing, a fibroid. And they made it this complicated thing because it was emergent. They had to go to surgery. No, it wasn't an emergency. Fibroids are not an emergency. She's had that fibroid for years. The likelihood that it's going to develop into something carcinogenic is very slim. And the point is that there's ways to shrink the fibroid that you don't have to go to surgery. First of all, she was 46 years old. Probably in a few years she would start to go into menopause, and the fibroid would have shrunk on its own. But let's talk about shrinking it now. Very simple. Take progesterone. Fibroids develop because of estrogen dominance. So all you have to do is counteract that with progesterone. I like to use bioidentical hormones, but very simple. And then you do the testing. You find out, why is it so high? Why is her estrogen so high? So is it metabolizing properly? Does she have too much androgens and testosterone is converting to estrogen? You have to find out what's going on. But even if you don't test, and this guy you don't have to be necessarily a functional medicine practitioner to know this, but just if she would start losing weight, that means less estrogen, that means the fibroid starts shrinking. Then she could it'll start balancing the hormones. Exercise it helps with hormone balance. Reducing the stress. Cortisol levels. When cortisol levels are too high, that can really throw things off. That'll throw off the hormone balance. So, reduce the stress. Exercise does that too. But yoga, meditation, or just going to see a therapist about your issues. And, and sleep. Sleep is huge. We know sleep is a root cause for many diseases. This is conventional medicine even. The research shows it. Functional medicine is not that there's no research. We always use evidence-based. That the point is that it's in news articles every day that sleep causes this, sleep causes that. But we know that sleep causes major hormonal issues. So something simple like working on sleep hygiene. But he didn't feel like doing that. And I know the doctor, he's a nice person, he's a good person, and I'm not going to go into it that, he's in it for the money or anything. It has nothing to do with that. It's that he's in the system, and he's made to there's certain guidelines, and the problem is that the guidelines make things too complicated. Instead of going back to pathophysiology and understanding why a fibroid develops, they go to extremes, and they say, if it's this size, we have to cut it out. No, there are simple things that you can do, and this really applies to anything in health. You have to eat well, you have to exercise, you have to be in the right mood, and you have to get to sleep on time and sleep well. So you tackle those 4 things, and then you look at labs to correct things in the meantime, and you have a healthy patient. It's just that simple, and you don't have to go through all those complicated things. And that's the idea of fighting bad medicine. That's just bad medicine. To either not care, make things too complicated. It's that balance. It's where we spend the time with the patient, listen to what's going on, do the testing, teach them about how they could correct the underlying issues through diet and lifestyle. It's that simple. Thank you for joining me today, and more episodes to come. Please subscribe, hit the subscribe button on the bottom, and have a great day.